Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive.
And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever, whenever you're listening to the show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice, welcoming you to episode 186 of Patrick Come Lately show. And we've got so much to talk about this evening. The jerk-in-chief that lives in the Spite House really has excelled himself over this last week. We're going to talk all about that. I mean, it is absolutely disgusting. However, before we get started on that, a reminder for those listeners that do listen live, and also for those of you that pick up the recordings via the Blog Talk Radio site, please use for the live listeners, please use the radio.patrickcomelately.us link to reach the show sometime in the near future. I'm not sure, probably 2 or 3 episodes from now. I've got some testing to do, but sometime in the near future, I'm thinking of trying a different service to run the show from. It's a little bit cheaper, slightly different facilities, but being cheaper gives me some opportunities to do some other things around the show. And supposedly the quality is better. Talk about the audio quality. I did get a comment last week that it sounded a little bit like being in a cave, and I apologize for that. I think that's the hotel room that I'm in. I've been trying all evening to reduce that. I'm now sitting surrounded by cushions, pillows from the bed, and hopefully it's not as bad as last week. But anyway, so improved quality for me, improved price. I will let you know about that, but if you, I will make sure that if you use the radio.patrickcomelately.us link, it will then take you to the new one when that starts. Also, same thing for recordings. Use the archives.patrickcomelately.us link, and that will take you. I will make sure the recordings are always available there. And, well, thanks for the feedback, Mary and John, who are there in the chat room, the sound being better. Yeah, there's still a little bit of an echo. It's bouncing off the walls. This is obviously not a studio, but I've tried to get it as close to a studio as possible, so I'm glad that it's better than last week. So, folks, so that was kind of the administrivia. Let's get down to business. And I think the main thing I want to say is, if we didn't already know it, I think this last week since the start of the shutdown, but especially the last few days, has really shown us that the regressives led by the jerk-in-chief from the Spite House, and I don't know if any of you noticed that renaming of that august building that sits at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but I think it's a great renaming, the Spite House, yes, with an SP at the beginning instead of a W, the Spite House. Let's just drum that in. But anyway, the incumbent in the Spite House has really outdone himself, and I think he and his cronies have really shown that they are at war with we the people. Yes, and I know that makes me really sound like the right-wing Tea Party extremist that the lefties are all complaining about. But the lies, the distortions of the truth, they're sitting there saying, well, the right wing of the party is holding the country to hostage. They don't want to negotiate. Yes, we want to negotiate. We have offered at least 4 different solutions, and none of them are acceptable. So that jerk really gets my goal. But as I said, he has proven that they are at war with this country, with we the people, with the American people, and all that's good about this country. And all they're doing is just trying to undermine us and totally bring this country down. So, folks, I don't know. Well, I'm going to get to something that we could do. I know I can't do it at this short notice, but I hope that everybody will do whatever they can to support some of these protests going on. Think about the truckers that are going to drive around the Beltway and just totally clog up Washington. I know people will be annoyed at that, but maybe that's what we need to do to draw attention to these bunch of low-life bottom feeders that are in Washington at the moment, and specifically the regressives, specifically King Barry and his court. I have to say that while there are some bad things going on the Republican side, and especially the way they're attacking the conservatives in their own ranks, but they are Boehner is kind of holding firm. I don't know how long he dares to do it, or maybe how long he dares not to do it. Maybe he sees the anger, the rage that is rising in the American people. You know, why we're not at the gates of the White House with torches and pitchforks. And I've talked about this before. We should just go there, and we should just, if thousands turned up and just swarm the gates and go in there and just kick King Barry out, literally. Oh boy, the Secret Service would have fun. It would be very interesting to see what would happen. But if we had enough people there, man, that would be interesting. Anyway, so why am I so riled up? 2 things, I think, really epitomize how this despicable, insidious, I'm just totally lost for words how to describe these lower than low people of the regime. I won't even grace them by calling them an administration. They are nothing but a regime, and Obama's nothing than a petty dictator. But here are a couple of things that, for me, really just take the biscuit. First of all, the fact that DOD is denying the death benefits that are always given to the families of fallen troops. Whenever someone is killed in the line of duty, which is a hard enough thing for a family to have to accept, they also get a benefit, a death benefit. It's $100,000, and it's wired to the members of the family within 36 hours of the death. The reason for that is that it can help pay for funeral costs and also to help with the initial living costs normally covered by the soldier's paycheck. If you're a soldier's wife and you've just lost your husband, the money stops. So this is kind of to tide you over till you can make other arrangements. It also helps the family fly to Dover Air Base, where the bodies of their loved one will arrive and be unloaded. Because of the shutdown, the DOD has said that they will be unable to wire this benefit to the people until they actually have money. Now, according to the Republicans, there was a bill passed just before the shutdown specifically to ensure that the pay of the military and also all the benefits were covered. So according to the Congress, and they asked the Department of Defense, if we pass the bill the way it is, will everything be covered, including things like the death benefit? And the DOD told them yes. There was an interview on TV this evening, and they were told, yes, it covers that. Now, all of a sudden, the DOD is backtracking and saying, no, it doesn't actually cover that. Well, do you think it really is Chuck Hagel that's doing that? No, it's that ass in the Spite House, Obama, that has given the orders for this. I can guarantee you that. I mean, this is just absolutely unbelievable that they would do this to our heroes, to our military. Just alone on that, we ought to impeach the bugger, take him out, and shoot him. That's all he deserves. The Park Service also raised a middle finger, and again, I think this is totally driven by orders coming from the Spite House. The Park Service has been the one, and we're going to go over some of the stupid examples of how petty, how Gestapo-like the Park Service has been over the past week. But lo and behold, they're all sweetness and light and open up the mall, which is one of the public areas that was shut off, open up the mall and allow a rally for illegal immigrants. Well, if the first part of this radio show did make your blood boil, how about the second part of the show, or the second topic here? It's not going to be the second part of the show because we got tons in the show. The second topic in the show, the fact that illegals were allowed to gather and rally for amnesty while our veterans are being shut out of the World War II memorial, the Vietnam memorial, the Korean War memorial. They're being shut out of that. They're being escorted out of that by park police who are normally never there. I mean, this is the other thing. The stupid so-and-so in the White House, in the Spite House, is actually making the National Park Service spend more money than they normally do just to keep people off these public places that are normally open. I mean, this really just gets my blood boiling. And so today there was the rally on the National Mall. Princess Pelosi, the bitch, was there. Robert Menendez was there. It was hosted by the SEIU, of course, the purple thugs the purple thugs like the brown shirts in Germany, the purple shirts in America here, the SEIU and AFL-CIO. I can't understand why these trade unions are actually pushing for all these illegal immigrants to come in. I think they hope that they'll get members out of them, but do they realize that they're actually all these illegals being given amnesty is going to make their American members lose jobs left, right, and center? I mean, this is just totally unbelievable how they could do this. And you know what they called it? They called it the March for Immigrant Dignity and Respect, or Marcha por la Dignidad y el Respeto de los Inmigrantes. Yeah, up yours, you immigrantes. Get the hell out of here. I've always said that maybe we do have to come up with a solution. I don't like it because I'm a legal immigrant myself. I came through the front door instead of the back door. But now with this finger that they're giving to the American people, as far as I'm concerned, we send them all back. And by the way, you want some hypocrisy? And we've seen all week, we've seen so much hypocrisy. I don't even think I have time today to talk about all of the hypocrisy we've seen. But how about this hypocrisy? Press credentials for the March for Immigrant Dignity and Respect. Dignity and Respect. All registrants will receive notification of status of application along with instructions to pick up press credentials on or before October 1st. Those approved to pick up press credentials must provide, here it comes, a government-issued photo identification. Ha! I thought government-issued photo identification was racist. I thought we weren't supposed to use that. Oh, it's good enough for when you want to pick up press credentials, but not when you want to vote. Who gives a shit about press credentials for a stupid tin pot march arranged by a bunch of thugs and lowlife like Nancy Princess Pelosi and Robert Menendez, the pedophile. So they have to have a photo ID there, but when you vote, you don't have to have a photo ID. Again, hypocrisy, hypocrisy, hypocrisy. That's all these bloody stupid regressives know to do is hypocrisy. They speak with forked tongue time and time and time again. Oh, excuse me, I'm just so riled up about all of this. Let's see, what else? Well, many of us were very saddened when a good friend of mine, Diane Student, Freedom's Wings, gave up her show on Blog Talk Radio. She's gone into more of the blogging type things. And on her blog, she had a recent posting about more hypocrisy from King Barry. Khalif Hussein lied to us. Remember how he promised that healthcare costs are going to go down? Well, Diane has a very specific example of, and I can add to that, and I will do, about healthcare costs, and basically the fact that they're going up. And she mentioned that she'd seen some links on other sites where they were talking about that. And the fact that Obama had said it's going to save you $2,500 a year in healthcare costs, right? So he could get elected. Well, folks, all of you that bought into that BS, enjoy it, because now you're going to see how much it's going to cost. Now, it varies from state to state. So, but Diane said, there are other sites who are claiming about these raises. Well, Diane has first-hand experience. This is not second-hand. This is actual first-hand experience of how much extra it's going to cost. Her partner works for Disney, as does my wife, by the way. And they give benefits to same-sex domestic partners. I know there's a lot of the Christian right that don't like Disney because of that, but that's one thing that I say, hey, if you choose to live that way, that's your choice. Let's be libertarian about it. There are other discussions about marriage and civil unions, whatever. Those are details. But if they're going to live together anyway. So I have no objections about same-sex domestic partners, which I know will turn off some of my audience, but sorry. Anyway, so Disney does that. And Disney has just distributed the paperwork for next year's healthcare benefits. Now, Diane said she was expecting a rise, but they didn't know how much. Now, one thing you have to realize, people who work for Disney, that's Diane's partner, don't earn a lot of money. Disney is, in some ways, it's a great company to work for. It's got a very unique corporate culture, but you don't earn a lot of money. You've got some nice benefits. You can go into the parks and things, but, right now, the parks are so full, it's not much of a benefit occasion. But anyway, it's a benefit. And they have some other things that are good. They've always been reasonably good on their health care, although my wife does it through my company because it was slightly better for us. So she's not on the Disney one. So I didn't see, I've already had my increase, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Anyway, so she found out that the plan that they've been on for more than 6 years is totally gone. So she looked, the two of them looked for an alternative, and the new plan is the cheapest one, but it's still going to cost more than the old plan. $50 a week more. So that's more than $200 a month. That's $2,400 out of a very limited budget. Remember, Disney folks don't earn a lot of money, and therefore that's $2,500 or $2,400 more that they have to pay next year for healthcare costs. On top of that, but that's not all, as they like to say on the TV. That's not all. Their old plan had $1,000 deductible, so you could actually say, okay, but now their new deductible is $3,000. So in actual fact, It's not just $2,400, it's $4,400 increase in their healthcare costs. Now, if they're lucky, they may not have to pay the full $4,400, but instead of saving $2,500, they are at least going to be paying $2,400 more. So that's a $5,000 increase over what the liar-in-chief told the American people. Can you believe that? And if you add in the deductible, then it's not just $5,000, it could be as much as $7,000. Now, Diane says, we could roll the dice and opt for the government exchanges if we were fucking nuts. Pardon my French. I know this evening I've gone a little further with some of my language and things that I've said that I normally do. I'm just so absolutely riled with everything. And supposedly in the government exchange, if you can get through, you might possibly save some money. But then, she says, we'd lose our plan, our insurance company, but we'd also lose our doctor and not be able to use a very special facility that Disney's health plan, Cigna, built on the Disney property specifically for Disney cast members and their families. Disney doesn't have employees, they have cast members, in case you didn't know. And so she says, somebody lied and it wasn't the anti-Obamacare protesters. No, the person that lied was the liar-in-chief that sits in the Spice Hat. Okay, well, I've been ranting so much, I see I've gone past my commercial break, folks. So stick with me. Time to play some of the commercials and see if we can pay for all these expensive Blog Talk Radio hobbies.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts, disrespect, we can help you stop it. Now you can get the Total Transformation for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. You can keep it forever for free.
Limited number of free programs available. Call now. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. That's 1-800-259-1409.
Are you at least 62 years old like me? Could you use an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more to live a better life? Then please consider the benefits a reverse mortgage can provide to you. With a reverse mortgage, you can have your mortgage payments stopped altogether and get equity out of your home to live on. And you can use the money to help you live a better life. How nice would that be, not to have a mortgage payment? Qualifying for a reverse mortgage is simple, since there are no income, asset, employment, or credit requirements. However, you must be 62 years or older, own your home outright, or have a very low balance on the mortgage, and be prepared to live in it throughout the rest of the loan. Call now for more information.
800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. That's 800-704-1662.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us.
And this is Stephan, your Patrick Come Lately. Welcome back to the show. If you have questions or comments, if you're signed up at Blog Talk Radio, you can participate in the chat room. If you're listening to a recording, please send me an email at stephan@patrickcomelately.us. I love hearing from my listeners. I always try to reply. If I don't reply, send me another short email. Occasionally, my mail provider is a little enthusiastic about weeding stuff out as spam, but send me a short one. They tend to go through and say, I sent you another one earlier. Go take a look for it, because the spam sits around for a bit, so I can go look for it. I'd love to hear from you. I'll put your questions on the air, your comments, and I'll also reply directly to you in the email. If you want to call in, 917-889-9161, although, I'm got a lot to go through tonight, so I hope that I notice if you do dial in, do listen along for a bit. I will try and get to you there. Now, we were talking before the break the fact that for Diane's student, the healthcare had gone up by, by between roughly $2,500 to $4,500, depending on the deductible. And if you add in the $2,500 that Obama promised us that it would be reduced, we're talking about a $5,000 a year increase in healthcare, which, can anybody afford that? Well, even the $2,500 stuff, that's a lot of money. For me, the story is, and I said I have kind of similar one. My company actually did some preparation last year for this and changed their plans. And the plan that I was on actually went up by 300%. Now, part of that was due to the fact that they switched to a graduated form of fees, of contribution to the healthcare benefit, which we hadn't had before. Everybody paid the same amount. And a lot of us were very annoyed by that, because they said, why should a big company like that be introducing socialist, spread the wealth type things? But later on, I have to be honest with them, I realized why they did it. They had to do it because of the Obamacare provisions, where the contribution that you pay has to be related to a percentage of your income. And it meant that people on very low incomes could not pay the same amount as I, or the company would get a hefty fine for charging them too much for that health care. So they had to go to these graduated ones, basically forced by the government. Oh, excuse me for that. So I was a bit of, I and many others, we have some forums, and I took a career risk by actually participating in them, but we were complaining about that. But later I realized that, maybe that's the reason why they did it. The 300% for essentially the same coverage that I'd had before. So like Diane, I changed it. I changed it to a much higher deductible one. Now, the company did do some things in their case to try and soften the blow of moving to the high deductibles. And we've done a lot of things. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but we found out that by not buying certain things via the insurance, especially pharmaceuticals, going to places like Sam's Club and actually negotiating with the pharmacist, even at the official pharmacy that we're supposed to use through the insurance, a lot of the time we said, don't do it on the insurance, I'll just pay cash. That we were able to get pretty good deals, and especially Sam's Club has some amazing deals where they tell us, well, the bill's going to be, a couple of $100 for some pills, but when we get there and flash our special card, it goes down to $35, $40, $50, and that is a good deal. So, you just have to be more aware of what you're doing. It can be done, but things have gone up, and that $2,500 a year savings, forget about it. Okay, folks, we'll continue to talk a little bit more about healthcare, and then I see another break is coming up. I'm just rattling on here, and then yet again, I've got, the regime has done so many stupid things, and I just don't understand. Well, I do understand. The reason that they're not getting called out on this is, again, because the mainstream media is bowing down and falling into them. However, there are signs that there are cracks, and there are parts of the mainstream media beginning to ask awkward questions. So it's not quite all hunky-dory in Obamaville anymore, and hopefully when people begin to realize all these things that the regime is doing that are totally unnecessary, but only have one thing in mind, which is to make the shutdown more uncomfortable for Americans than absolutely necessary. As soon as they realize that, I think they're going to have a hard time when the 2014 election comes around. And we have to keep the meme alive. We have to keep the story alive so people know what's going on and remember that in about a year's time. So, folks, time for the next break. Stick with me, and we will be back right after these messages.
Alarming signs. Are you watching for them? Before the Great Depression, there were alarming signs. Before the 2008 Great Recession, there were early indicators. If you missed those, pay attention. Today's economic warnings couldn't be more clear. Federal debt is $16 trillion, and in 8 years is projected to hit $22 trillion, enough to bankrupt the country. While our currency is being debased, China, Russia, India, and others are stockpiling gold to prepare. Can your family afford another financial loss of 20, 30, even 40%? Get informed. Protect your assets right now. Call Lear Capital and request a free copy of the special report, Rising Debt and Record Gold Ahead. Call right now. 800-958-5306. 800-958-5306. Call Lear now. 800-958-5306.
It's a very scary world out there. Media misinformation, a slow economy, rising activism, and horrible tragedies. And government officials that take full advantage of all of it. Worst of all, a growing class of people that simply do not care. Well, we care. We are Hatton Humphrey and Ken Johnston, hosts of the East Coast Conservative Podcast. We present the news, sometimes news you wouldn't hear about otherwise, and offer our conservative views on what's going on around us. We do it without insult, with care and consideration, and sometimes some pretty bad jokes. Find us on the web at eastcoastconservative.com. Listen to us on the Red State Talk Radio Network. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast player. Or better yet, let your voice be heard. Join us for our recording session every Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Like what you hear? Tell your friends about us. Don't like it? Keep listening. You'll hear different words in a different order.
The path to restoring our republic was laid down by our founding fathers. The principles of freedom, liberty, personal responsibility, and limited government are conservative ideals we will never abandon. America is listening. Grassroots, common sense, conservative talk radio. It's on the internet. Tune in now. Red State Talk Radio, featuring some of the most popular internet talk show hosts in America today. Are you listening? RedStateTalkRadio.com.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, keeping the spirit of America alive, a proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network.
And this is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately. Thanks for joining me tonight, whether you're listening live and commenting in the chat room, or just listening along, or whether you're listening to one of the recordings. Just a reminder for all my listeners, please use the patrickcomelately.us website, or patrickcomelately.com also works, to reach the show, whether it's radio.patrickcomelately.us to reach the live show, or whether it's archives.patrickcomelately.us to reach the recordings. I'm looking at an alternative for Blog Talk Radio. I'm not all that thrilled with the quality of Blog Talk Radio. It does have some advantages, but I'm looking at an alternative. When that happens, and I will do some tests beforehand to make sure that everything does work the way I want it. But when that happens, then I will just point those website addresses to the new locations, and therefore if you come in through those websites, you'll always get to the right place. You won't have to worry about thinking of a different address to come to. But if you're coming in directly through Blog Talk Radio, yes, that could be a problem. So please get used to using radio.patrickcomelately.us. And one of the things, if I do go ahead with this new alternative, I do have to warn you, the chat room will change slightly. You will have to jump into the chat room specifically, but I believe, and that's one thing I want to check out, it may not require registration the same way that Blog Talk Radio requires. Or then again, it may. We'll see. Most of these sites have some kind of registration requirement just to keep trolls and stuff out. Okay, let's go on. And I've got tons of stuff, of stupid things that this government's been doing. And I just can't understand why people are not just up in arms and out on the streets about this. Let's quickly run through some of them and try not to get too detailed. And some of them I know you've heard about, but I just want to get this out there. We need to let people know how vindictive, how insidious, how despicable this government, this regime actually is being, because everything they're doing here is totally unnecessary. And in many cases, the cost of what they're doing is higher than the cost if they've done nothing. So if they're saying because of the shutdown we can't afford to open up things, and yet they're putting barricades, they're having people stand guard there, how do they pay for that? I mean, this is part of this hypocrisy. But then again, let's face it, they're regressives. Hypocrisy is their middle name. So, okay. So, how about this headline that I saw? Gestapo tactics meet senior citizens at Yellowstone. This was a reporter, John McCone of the New Report Daily News. And he interviewed someone that went on a trip that was intended to showcase some of America's greatest treasures. Instead, this person said that she and others on her tour bus, this was a tour bus full of mainly senior citizens, witnessed an ugly spectacle that made her embarrassed, angry, and heartbroken for her country. She was one of the thousands of people who found themselves in a national park as the federal government shutdown went into effect on October 1st. For many hours, her tour group, which included senior citizen visitors, not just from all over America, but from Japan, Australia, and Canada, were locked in a Yellowstone National Park hotel under armed guard. Folks, under armed guard, they were treated like criminals, as if they were under arrest. There were visitors, tourists from abroad who don't speak much English, didn't know what was going on, who thought they were under arrest. Can you imagine that? Besmirching the good name of America just to prove a point. That's not the Republicans that are doing. That's those damn lowlife, the Democrats, the regressives that are doing that. But what I think is even worse, the tourists were treated harshly by the armed park employees, so much so that the foreign tourists thought they were under arrest. When finally allowed to leave, the bus was not allowed to halt at all along the 2.5-hour trip out of the park, not even to stop at private bathrooms that were open along the route. I mean, this is unbelievable. And while it's bad enough that King Barry was doing this, I'm very disappointed at the park rangers that apparently were really acting like terrorists, like as the headline said, like Gestapo thugs, like brown shirts, like the Stasi in East Germany, like the NDKD in Russia, and really being absolutely obnoxious to these people. Now, I can understand that HQ, well, the Spite House, gives an order and says, okay, we've got to close this down, you've got to kick these people out, but you can do it in a nice way. You don't have the length they went to. They took these people who'd paid $300 to access the park, shut them up in a hotel room, and then in the hotel, put armed guards on the door, and then put them back on the bus next day and send them out again. They weren't allowed to go and see Old Faithful, so basically all they did was pay $300 and sit in the hotel. Well, they should sue Yellowstone. They should sue the National Park Service and get their money back on that. I mean, this is just totally, it shows how little respect King Barry has for we the people, for America, and with the debt ceiling. Well, let me finish on this. No, I'm getting too worked up on this. Let's get worked up on the next thing. The debt ceiling limit is coming up. And all the time, all you hear on the mainstream media is default, default, default. Oh, we're going to default, we're going to default, we're going to default. Okay, folks, let's get this very straight. There is absolutely no need to default. There is enough money coming in to pay for the interest on all of our loans, because that's what defaulting is. There is enough money coming in to pay for any bonds which come due. That's money which we've loaned for a fixed period, like a CD, and said, you can redeem this on such and such a date. We have more than enough money coming in day by day to do that. However, because we actually spend more money than comes in, and we have to go out and loan money every month or every so often to cover the fact that we spend more than we take in, that means that certain things that we do pay for cannot get paid for. And so there's going to have to be some hard decisions in the District of Corruption, and they've got to be made by the Spite House. It's the Congress, the House, that actually controls the purse strings. They award the money, but it's up to the Spite House to decide how that money is actually spent. Well, after all the awful, despicable, low-down, insidious things that we've seen them do this week with closing the parks, throwing people out, closing the memorials in Washington, closing down private businesses that are on federal land, Mount Vernon, where they closed the parking lot, which is officially federal land. Why would you close that? There's no federal people involved. There's no cost involved with that. Mount Vernon itself is private property, but the parking lot, the overlooks by Mount Rushmore on the side of the road, they put cones up to keep people from parking in the overlooks on a public road to look at Mount Rushmore because it's a national park. Folks, if they'll go to those lengths, what do you think is going to happen if King Barry doesn't get his way with the debt limit? And so he's going to act even more like a spoiled little brat, like he's been doing now. Do you trust him not to default on our interest payments and on our bond repayments? What would happen if he did that? If he defaulted on that, then the financial markets would collapse. The world economy would look at us and say, we can't trust them anymore, and the dollar would collapse. You want to know about that? Read Currency by Todd Wood. I've interviewed him on this show a couple of times. First time was about his book Currency. Second time, the book Sugar. Read both of them. I love the ending of Sugar. It's unbelievable. But Currency explains what could happen. But basically, the dollar will lose. I mean, it's not going to go to zero, but it will lose a lot of its value. It'll go down. My guess, I'm not a financial expert, but based on what I saw in the UK in similar situations, it'll go down 15, 20, 25, maybe even 30% in value. It means everything we buy abroad is going to go up 30% more expensive. So here we are. Poor Diane is having to pay $200 a month more for health care, and then her and her partner's meager income is going to get reduced by 30% effectively. Well, maybe not 30% because obviously things in America, they don't go up quite that way, but gas is going to go up, so that means food will go up. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Now, do you trust that lowlife in the Spite House not to do that? I think he would love to do it just to spite us because he's such a petulant little child. Man, I really think we just need, I just wish we could go there with 100,000, 200, 500,000 people and just swarm the White House and take the bugger out and just send him off to Gitmo. Take him to, Leavenworth or somewhere. He needs, just get rid of him. And all anybody who doesn't follow the Constitution in the District of Corruption, out. Go send them all off to Cuba or something like that. Excuse me, I'm getting all worked up again. I got to watch it. It's not good for my blood pressure. I know. Anyway, but it'll be okay. But I don't trust him, and this is very dangerous. So we've got to be interesting to see what happens with this debt ceiling discussion. But remember, folks, there will be no default. Don't believe the sky is falling that the mainstream media is doing. They're just trying to whip us up to make the Republicans cave. We need to get serious concessions from the regressives if they want to have an increase on the debt ceiling. Okay, folks, time for the last commercials. So if you'll stick around with me for a couple of minutes, and I'll be back after these messages.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom112.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom112.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom112.com. Go to freedom112.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom112.com.
Are you paying too much for your car insurance policy? Have you shopped your current plan in the last year? If you haven't, then you probably are paying too much. You could save up to 40% on your current car insurance coverage just by making a free call right now. Doesn't it make good sense to pay less for something you have to pay for anyway? And car insurance is one of those things. You got to have car insurance, whether you have one car or 10 cars. So why not see if you can pay a lot less for it right now? One quick 3-minute call, and you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. We'll compare the leading car insurance companies and get you coverage that could save you up to 40% on your car insurance. Call now for a free quote. Call 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. That's 800-603-9980.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us.
And this is Stephan, your Patrick Come Lately, welcoming you back to the last segment of episode 186 of the Patrick Come Lately talk show. And I've been ranting on about these despicable, totally unnecessary things that Obama has deemed should be done to make life difficult for we the people. And they're totally unnecessary. You know, what is it? I think it's 15% of the government is actually shut down. The rest is all just chuntering along. And people don't realize, or are beginning to realize, that maybe we don't need that 15%. Maybe government is too big. Now, in the chat room, and I didn't say hi to Rex, who joined us as well. So hi, Rex. Glad to see you there. And also there's a guest in the chat room. I know Blog Talk Radio likes you to register, so if you're there as guest, you can't participate in the chat room. And I normally see the numbers. There are also people who don't appear in the guest list, but so they're not in the chat room. But normally it seems to be the statistics show that there were a few more listeners. So welcome to those as well. In the chat room, there was an interesting couple of discussions. One about us losing reserve currency status, which, as I said, would be a disaster. But the other one, which was another one of these unnecessary things that happen, was at Lake Mead. There are a number of so-called vacation homes on Lake Mead where people were told they had to get out of the houses, whether they were there on vacation, or in the case of a couple of retired people who actually pretty much make it a full-time home. Now, I'm sure there's some sort of regulation they're not supposed to do that, but whatever, it is for them their full-time home pretty much. And they were ordered to leave in pretty much, I think, just about an hour's notice, or 2 hours' notice, very, very small. And I've seen some posts, but it also got me thinking, so their house is on federal land and they had to vacate the house. What about 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? Isn't that on federal land? Maybe we should make them vacate the house and let them go live at a Motel 6. Except they wouldn't go to a Motel 6, of course, because they'd be at one of the swankiest hotels in Washington and racking up the bills for us. I think I mentioned this in the show just after he got elected, that while they were in the transition period before they moved into the White House, the bills that Muchel rang up at that hotel at taxpayer expense were unbelievable. I mean, she talk about raiding the minibar and then signing everything to the room service for the most expensive caviar, patisseries and everything. Unbelievable. Probably spent as much as you and I would spend in a week at a normal hotel every day on extras signed to the room. Can you believe that? Yeah, with our money. So it shows how much respect they have for us. But anyway, so should we kick him out? Well, what can we do about it? Well, let's support the truckers. This weekend they're going to be driving. I think right now they've got about 3,000. Anybody else that can go, and I know we keep asking people to go to Washington and demonstrate about this and demonstrate about that, but any support we can give these guys, it's going to be a pain in the you-know-where, because what you're going to have to do is get on the Beltway and get behind one of these trucks and just drive around. They're going to try and drive at the speed limit, but the Beltway soon jams up, and they're just going to clog it absolutely up. I think they said they have already 3,000 truck drivers with all this other stuff that's going on. Who knows? Maybe they'll get a few more. There's also Mark Levin has started calling for vets to go to D.C. and any local memorials, veterans memorials, so for whichever war, Second World War, Vietnam War, Korean War, and there are normally no guards there, but now all of a sudden they have to have guards to stop people getting in. And we know all the stories about the vets on the honor flights that broke down the fences, but they keep making it more and more difficult. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's terrible. So Mark Levin's been pushing something, the 1 Million Vet March, also on the 13th of October in D.C., but or local memorials. And there is a website for that. It's the number 1, VETMARCH. So 1 Million Vet March, 1M Vet March, one word, .wordpress.com. Go there. Excuse me. Go there. You can sign a petition. You can contact them. You can also follow them on Facebook and Twitter. Use the hashtag on Twitter. Support them. They're doing it on the same day that the truckers are. Whatever we can do to get out on the streets, get out on the streets. Don't tread on me flags. Just go stand on the corner on the 13th and wave the flags. Hold up some signs saying Obama is a jerk, King Barry is a jerk, is a lowlife, whatever. Just do it. Because the more we can rile the people up, the more chance we have in November of really doing what needs to be done, and that is keeping the House, taking the Senate, so we can then stymie that a-hole in the Spite House for the remainder of his term and make sure that he leaves there with his tail between his legs. Okay, folks. Apologies to those of you that think this is a family show. I know earlier in the show I said some things that were slightly stronger language than I normally use. My apologies to everybody for that. But I'm just absolutely, fed up with everything that's going on. And with all this ranting, we've reached the end of the show, folks. Isn't that amazing? And I haven't covered half the stuff I want to do. We talk about the IRS investigating the Tea Party, and now we have some very strong proof of a left-wing organization using its C3 status to do political activities. Will the IRS investigate that? We'll talk about that next week. Folks, thanks for joining me. It's time to go. I see that the music is starting, so it's the usual greeting there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Please join me next week, and remember, long live liberty.
Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.